Welcome to Week 9 of the 2024-25 NFL season, and yours truly went 13-3 last week in Week 8. Definitely got the Washington game wrong, but as a Packers fan, watching the Bears lose was way better than getting that pick right. Just about everybody probably got the Cleveland and Ravens game, and it's probably more of a toss-up between Minnesota and a lot of St. Louis fans, but more people probably did pick Minnesota to win. So it was a good week. Let's see if we can keep it going this week. I already see a couple matchups that are going to be tricky, a bunch of toss-ups, but let's go through them one by one. And let's start off with our first game of the week on Thursday night. Houston versus the Jets. Just going to say this right off the bat, Jets are not winning this game, and if they do, hell has frozen over because the Jets are just awful. Aaron Rodgers, he's not throwing picks left and right. His teams just aren't winning. Who would have thought that the defense would be the worst problem for the Jets? I mean, they've been bad. Breece Hall has definitely been playing much better of late. Braylon Allen got a nice touchdown this week. But again, they just found ways to lose. Drake May went out early with a concussion. And Jacoby Brissett, who has such a low floor, played well enough to get the win. I mean, if it weren't for a couple of really bad penalties by the Jets probably would have won and they'd be 3-5 instead of 2-6. But alas, they just suck. The Jets are just a cursed organization, and they always will be. As long as Woody Johnson owns that team is not going to get any better. And for all of Houston's fault, we'll see what happens with Stephon Diggs if he's going to be out for a long time. Especially we've seen their offense has sputtered a little bit of late because no Nico Collins means C.J. Stroud has to depend on other wide receivers. But Joe Mixon still are toting the rock very well. So Texans should win this pretty easily. I would assume it'd probably be about 28-13, something like that. Jets aren't going to win this game, and if they do, like I said, hell has frozen over. Next. Atlanta versus Dallas. The Dallas Cowboys, again, lose to the 49ers. They just can't beat this team. Atlanta were beat up on Tampa Bay once again. Kirk Cousins had another great game. Bijan had a touchdown, but it wasn't as good as he has been in the past couple of games. Darnell Mooney again had a good game. Atlanta's defense was kind of firing. And for Dallas, I mean, they were down 27-10. They got some some garbage time touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and CeeDee Lamb had a couple garbage time touchdowns in a pretty good fourth quarter, but they weren't going to win that game. San Francisco beat them down once again. And again, it's just, you look at the Cowboys and just like, is there any hope? Probably not. No, they're probably not. They're just not a good team. Their defense just isn't what it has been in the past. You can really tell the loss of Dan Quinn affected them more than what will happen if they had lost or fired Mike McCarthy. The Cowboys just are not a good team. I don't see good things for them in this game. Atlanta's been on a roll, and as much as I want to crap on Atlanta, saying they always collapse, they look to be the front runners of the AFC South, and I don't see any reason why they won't win this game. They should be able to run the ball. Bijan should have a pretty good game. Kirk Cousins should be able to have 3 to 4 touchdowns. And it's just, there'll probably be a high-scoring game. But Atlanta's going to win 35-27. Like I said, it's going to be close. But again, Dallas loses and Atlanta keeps adds winning totals and getting close to a playoff berth. Next. Miami versus Buffalo. Boy, this game going into the season looked a lot better than it does now. Sure, Tua is back, and he had a decent game last week, but again, Miami found a way to lose. They were up big on Arizona, but Arizona kept plugging away, kept handing it off to James Conner. Kyler Murray didn't completely shit the bed, so they were close. But again, Miami found a way to lose. Devon Achane had a great game. Tyreek Hill was more like Tyreek Hill. Waddle had some more catches as well. But again, it's like Miami's just there. I don't know what's wrong with Miami. Again, every time you see Tua hold the ball, you worry that something bad is going to happen. You worry that he's going to suffer another concussion. And 5 concussions in 2 years may just be the death knell. So hopefully he can avoid that. But even still, they're going into Buffalo. Buffalo's been on a tear. They look like one of the best offenses in the league. Their offense, or defense, even though they lost a bunch of players, looks great as well, holding Seattle in Seattle to 10 points, and that they had one garbage touchdown at the end. So really, it was 34-3 for a large part of the second half. The Seattle's just not a good team either. But I mean, Buffalo, if they win, they ascend. No, I don't want to say that because worse things have happened. But if Buffalo wins, they'll be 7-2, and everybody else in the division will probably have 2 wins. That's a 5-game lead, and with Buffalo winning both matchups, there's like nary a chance for Miami to come back and win. Now, sure, it'll be a high-scoring game for sure. They'll trade touchdowns. Devonta Shane have a good game against the Buffalo's rushing defense, but their secondary has been great. They'll probably be able to hold Miami down on the passing front, and yeah, I just see Buffalo winning again. Buffalo will be 7-2. Miami will be 2-7, I believe. And it's just not good for Miami. I mean, even with Tua on the field, I just don't see much hope for this team. They just really don't. So in the end, Miami wins, or Buffalo wins 28-17. I mean, it'll be somewhat closer early on, but I think Buffalo pulls away because they just think they're that much of a better team. Next, Cincinnati versus Las Vegas. Again, this is kind of a toss-up. It really is. I mean, Cincinnati, their offense looks pretty good for the most part, most days, but their defense is just awful. Their defense is literally awful. I looked at picking them up in fantasy football today, and it says prediction for 10 points, but Las Vegas is a sneaky team. They find ways to score sometimes. They find ways to score enough points to make it just not worth playing any defense you play against them. I mean, they put up a lot of points last week against Kansas City, and Kansas City's defense is one of the best in the league. Las Vegas, while not great with Gardner Minshew, they've been able to score points. I mean, they're really no danger of winning most games, but as long as Brock Bowers is out there, they have a chance to look pretty decent. He's just a solid tight end, probably the future best tight end in the league. Cincinnati, like I said, their defense is just awful, and that's why even against the Raiders will still find a way to score points and maybe even win this game. I'm going to go with Cincinnati, but I'm going to say this right off the bat. If Las Vegas wins, it would not surprise me in the slightest. It really wouldn't, because Cincinnati, for all their good play of late, they got absolutely destroyed by Philadelphia, and it was to be expected. I mean, like I said, Cincinnati's defense is awful. When you play really good offense, Cincinnati's defense really falls apart. But I will go with Cincinnati. Burrow and Jamar should have a really good day together. Maybe T. Higgins gets them working too. Chase Brown has been the lead back for them for the last couple of weeks, so continue to see that. But yeah, Vegas doesn't have enough, but they'll make it interesting. Cincinnati wins 24-20, something like that. Next, Cleveland versus the Chargers. Now again, this is an interesting game. After Cleveland went in and beat Baltimore, they could feasibly beat the Chargers. I mean, Chargers had some moments last week, but again, they kind of had trouble putting New Orleans away in the first half. It was really close, and they didn't have a lot of points. J.K. Dobbins has been pretty up and down the last couple weeks. I mean, he's had some good games, but he's not running like he was in the beginning of the season. Defenses are starting to catch on a little bit, and the blocking hasn't been as great as it was early on in the season. Cleveland, for all the talk about Jameis Winston had a pretty darn good game. Njoku had a good game. Even with the loss of Amari Cooper, they were still able to get guys wide open, and their defense looked pretty good. They were able to get to Lamar Jackson on a couple of counts. This is a toss-up game. Justin Herbert is a good quarterback, but he never looks good doing it. Like, for most of the year, he hasn't looked spectacular. He hasn't had a game where he just looks absolutely spectacular. I mean, he started off well last week, but again, he ends up with like maybe one touchdown. He just, I don't know what it is. It's probably just because they don't have the full complement of wide receivers, but the connection between him and Lad McConkey is starting to really heat up, and he's probably a good pickup in your fantasy league. But I'm going to give the chart. No, I will give Cleveland the win, 21-18. The Chargers have been scoring well, but a lot of their drives ends in field goals. That's what I've definitely noticed. Cam Dicker is one of the better kickers in the league, and he's been pretty efficient so far. And they've largely depended on him to get them lots of points. So I don't see that stopping anytime soon. So Cleveland wins in a shocker. Plus, it's in Cleveland, so I think that gives them just a little bit of an edge in the dog mound, but should be a good game regardless. New England versus Tennessee. Again, a toss-up. I mean, the Titans just got absolutely smashed last week, but the Lions absolutely smashed. But still, Mason Rudolph had close to 300 passing yards, so the secondary of the Lions isn't great. It's just the Titans never had a chance of winning that game. New England with the win over the Jets. We'll see if Drake May is able to go, because that definitely gives them a better chance to win than Jacoby Brissett. Even though Jacoby Brissett won the game, I think that was more on the defense and more on the Jets collapsing at the end than the Patriots outright winning on offense. It's in Tennessee. Tony Pollard has been pretty darn efficient all year. Calvin Ridley had a great game last week, almost 150 yards passing. Like I said, there's a good connection between him and Mason Rudolph. Will Levis going to continue not playing, so that's good. You know what? I'll give Tennessee the win. Tennessee's been looking for a win for a while, and if they're going to win any game, it's probably this one. Tony Pollard should probably have a good game. Mason Rudolph, while not great, should be able to get a touchdown or two here and there. Relatively low-scoring game because, like I said, both defenses are pretty good for the most part. So, final score is going to be 17-14. But, if the Patriots win, it wouldn't surprise me in the least. It's just, I think the Titans have a little bit more going for them. But, plus, it's just depending on Drake May. He got a concussion, so who knows if they'll hold him out for a week for him to get over it. But we shall see. Next. Washington versus the Giants. The Giants with a loss over Pittsburgh. Washington with the miracle Hail Mary to Noah Brown to win the game over the Bears. I mean, I should say this. That game did look kind of scripted at the end, just because all the defenders were at least a couple feet out in front of Noah Brown and just perfectly lands right in Noah Brown's hands. It just seems a little fishy there, but Washington with the big win. Giants just not looking good. Washington didn't have the greatest offense at times last week. They kind of sputtered from time to time, and for most of the game, they only had field goals, so they weren't able to score. I think Jaden Daniels, you can say, is definitely good enough to play, so he's looking like to be the rookie of the year right now in offense. I don't believe the hype that he's going to be MVP. I just don't believe that. They're not going to give a rookie quarterback the MVP. It's just not going to happen. And the Giants just are a bad team. They're just a bad team. they're just trying to run out the clock before they can get a new quarterback next year and send Daniel Jones down the river where he belongs. Malik Neighbors has had some good moments here and there, but didn't have a lot going for him last week against a tough Pittsburgh front. I think Washington wins this pretty handily, although I've said this in the past. Picking Washington and the Commies versus the Giants is one of the most difficult games in the world because the Giants always seem to show up against their rival, the Commies. So I will give the Commies the win, preferably 27-17 win, but if it's closer, it won't surprise me in the weeks because they play each other well. No matter how bad either of them are, they always play a good game. Well, maybe not the most watchable game, but it's always close. So Washington wins. They keep charging and they keep a hold of that NFC East for now. I still think they're a little better than the Eagles, maybe just a smidge, but Washington wins again. New Orleans versus Carolina. Again, the toilet bowl if I've ever seen one. Carolina's just, they can't win. They can't win most days. New Orleans, they haven't won since week 2. So, 2-6. What a fall from grace. Dennis Allen should be gone by the end of the year, hopefully, because he's just, there's no way he should keep his job after this. Just absolutely horrible. Rattler didn't have a ton of turnovers last week, but again, not enough to win. They looked better, a little better offensively for a time, but again, still, just really couldn't get a lot going. If Rattler continue his connection that he had last week with Olave, that should definitely spell good things for them. But New Orleans isn't a playoff team. Carolina is not a playoff team. It's a battle for the toilet bowl. I just don't have much good things to say about Carolina. You might as well just go back to Bryce Young and just see what you have, because you got the small amount of magic that Andy Dalton has, but might as well just see what you have with Bryce Young the rest of the way, because you're not going anywhere. You're not going to win anything. You're not going for the playoffs. Just play your best asset just to see where you are, and then maybe trade him so he gets a new start somewhere else. At least give him that chance. Don't let him just sit and stew on the bench forever. I just don't think that's right. You invested all this time into number one pick, and then you just go with the old rusty rival in Andy Dalton. Yeah, so I think New Orleans is able to get a win. This might be one of their few games that they'll win the rest of the year, but at least they'll get to 3-6. But again, not much to say. Saints win 24-21. Again, if Carolina wins, it wouldn't surprise me at all, but I'm beaten down as a Saints fan that we're not going anywhere. No Super Bowl for the Saints, no playoffs for the Saints, and they're going to have a new head coach next year. Next. Denver versus Baltimore, one of the most interesting games of the week, one of the best games of the week. Denver has been firing. Bo Nix has had a bunch of really good games. Their defense has been firing on all cylinders. Baltimore losing last week in one of the surprise games of the week. I mean, I gotta be honest, Baltimore should have won that game. There's no reason why they should have lost that game. They just lost for reasons. Again, Lamar Jackson coming down to the end, just again trying to play hero ball. It just doesn't make sense. Why Derrick Henry didn't have a better game, I don't know. Cleveland does have a good front for sure, but Derrick Henry should have done better. Again, sometimes for whatever reason, for the Baltimore Ravens, they move away from the run the ball. It should be your issue every game. Sometimes Lamar depends too much on the pass, and as a result, he throws turnovers or just makes really bad reads. holds onto the ball too long and ends up having to chuck it down the field with no hope of someone catching it. It's just, he just has that problem, and you can't do that against Baltimore or Denver. Denver's defense looks great. It is in Baltimore, so maybe that gives them the edge, but I don't know. I should go with Baltimore in this instance. It kind of screams a Derrick Henry game, but I don't know. Both defenses have been playing pretty well, so I think I'm gonna go with the upset special of the week. Denver wins, surprisingly, 27-24. Sure, Bo Nix has been up and down for most of the year, but when he's playing well, he's playing well. He's running for touchdowns. He's looking good as a passer. And their defense, as long as their defense is what their defense is, they have a chance of staying in games. So I will give them the edge just based on the fact that Lamar Jackson will probably find a way to lose the game or throw a game-winning interception, something like that. But I will go with Denver to win in the upset of the week. Next. Jacksonville versus Philadelphia. Philadelphia with the big win over Cincinnati. Jacksonville with the last-minute loss to the Packers. Jacksonville lost a bunch of players this week. No more Christian Kirk the rest of the year. We'll see if Brian Thomas is able to play this week. He left with a chest injury. Tank Bigsby looks to be like a good running back. So even when ETN comes back, I would assume their Tank Bigsby will still be plenty of carries, probably 60-40, something like that. But right now, you should be running with the hot hand. Tank Bigsby looks great. ETN has not looked great for most of the year, and frankly, just been kind of bad. Philly, Jalen Hurts seems to be running for more touchdowns than throwing touchdowns, but when he's throwing, he's looking pretty darn good. As long as him and A.J. Brown are out there, they have a really good chance to win. The defense for Philadelphia isn't great, but they have been able to cause some destruction here on the opposing offensive line. In Jacksonville, it's probably going to be that way. Their defense should be able to get to Jacksonville's offensive line. With no Christian Kirk, that's one less weapon that Trevor Lawrence has. And Trevor Lawrence, even when he's had all of his weapons, hasn't looked the greatest at times. The Packers certainly fell apart last week a little bit once Evan Williams went out with the hamstring injury and Jair went out at the end, so that didn't help. But the Packers were still able to win. It's just even still, the Jacksonville had a chance to win. It's probably one of the best chances Jacksonville has to win this year, because now they go on a big long stretch against teams that are all have 2 losses. So things are not looking good for Jacksonville or their chances to make the playoffs. And I don't see any reason for them to beat Philly. Philly should whoop their asses this week, winning 35-24. I think Jacksonville sure will be able to get points because Tank Bigsby should be able to get his carries and should be able to couple goal line carries for maybe a touchdown or two. But in the end, Philly just has too much, and Jacksonville continues to go down. Next. Chicago versus Arizona, another one of the interesting games of the week. Arizona with the big win over Miami. Chicago with the shocking loss to Washington. Again, the Bears at times look decent when they run the ball, which all good Bears teams have not a great running back, but just a couple good running backs that can get yards. And they were able to get yards last week. DeAndre Swift started that comeback with a big 56-yard touchdown run. I mean, he just looked actually absolutely electric out there. But the Bears do Bear things, like hand off the ball to an offensive lineman at the 2-yard line, who then fumbles, and then you get the ball back to Washington. I mean, and Caleb Williams, yes, I know people are going to say he did kind of look decent against Washington last week, but for like 3 quarters, he was awful. And Washington's secondary is one of the worst in the league, so the fact that Caleb Williams didn't have an amazing game is troubling, to say the least. Troubling for Caleb Williams. Now, Arizona, Kyler is not exactly lighting it up, but he's doing enough to win. And James Conner is old reliable. He's just steady. He just keeps running well. He's getting touchdowns, and he's a pretty good receiving threat as well. So I continue to not believe in the Bears, and I'm going to continue doing so this week. It's in Arizona, and Arizona looking good. They may well make a playoff spot, and they may well take a spot from either Seattle or the Rams, or even the 49ers. Who knows? 49ers still might not make the playoffs. I know it's blasphemous, and they probably still will make the playoffs, but Arizona, as long as they keep winning, anything's possible. And I see them winning this game. I don't think this is really another upset. I think Arizona's favored by 3 points. So, but Arizona wins. 28-21. And yeah, Arizona with the 3-game winning streak, looking good and looking at it with a decent shot to win the AFC West, which who would have thought that going into the year that Arizona would have a shot to win the AFC or NFC West. But they do. They really do. Next. Seattle versus the Rams. Seattle with the big loss to Buffalo. I mean, they just got absolutely beaten down. And there's talk about is the 12th man still a thing? Because apparently there are a lot of Buffalo fans there, and even the players themselves said it sounded like an away game at times. Geno Smith just looks defeated. He looks terrible. Kenny Walker could not get anything going last week. Just nothing. There's nothing there for Seattle. They scored that one touchdown, but again, it was garbage time all the way. It was like 34-3, and they finally score, and the touchdown is just, it's not good. Seattle's not looking great. Rams with a big win over Minnesota on Thursday night. Kieran Williams looking great, and who would have thought Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp come out having big games after several weeks off. Puka Nacua going over 100 yards. Cooper Kupp having a touchdown over 50 yards. That connection between Stafford and Nacua and Stafford to Kupp is real, and their offense is firing, and their defense has been committed, or has been causing turnovers. They've been getting to the quarterback. Yes, there was that holding call that supposedly wasn't called, but it's like it's one play in the game. Shouldn't make that much of a difference. Minnesota should have been winning, especially with the way they were getting to Justin Jefferson. They should have done much better than what they actually did. But I like the Rams to win this game. See, it's in Seattle, but again, like I said, is the 12th man real anymore? Who knows? And the Rams are firing. Seattle is slowly sinking. I don't see how they come back from that and put up a meaningful effort. Probably will be somewhat because they're rivals, so it should be a decent game. But in the end, the Rams win 27-20. Geno Smith just is not great. He's just not good. I know people want to give him that he's on the rise again, but he's just not. He's a above average quarterback with some decent skills to get out of the pocket and run, but he just makes bad decisions all the time, and that's why his teams lose. He just doesn't have enough to win most weeks. But the Rams win, and they also look like a great chance to win the AFC West and NFC West as well. Next. Indy versus Minneapolis in Minnesota on Sunday night. Minnesota with the loss to the Rams on Thursday night. Definitely should have won that game. Indy with the loss to Houston. Again, Indy looks great when Jonathan Taylor's on the field. Jonathan Taylor has been great all year long. He's had like near or close to or over 100 yards every game he's played this year. And yes, he missed 3 games with that high ankle sprain, but he came back and had over 100 yards rushing last week, had a nice reception and a rushing touchdown as well. And I mean, the Colts didn't win, but they were close. Although the issue of Anthony Richardson coming out because he needed a break is really concerning. He's your starting quarterback. He's your future at the position, and he takes a play off because he's exhausted. And then you look at his stats. He was like 10 for 32 for a little over 100 yards, but still 10 for 32. My God, he's not getting any better. He can make fantastic plays for sure, but good God, 10 for 32 is unacceptable for any starting quarterback in this league, especially for someone that is supposed to be as skilled as Anthony Richardson is. Minneapolis should be fine this week. Minnesota should be fine this week. Justin Jefferson should go over 100 again. Aaron Jones should have a pretty good game. Maybe Addison will have a good game. He hasn't really done much since that Green Bay game. But their defense should be able to get to Indy. And it's just like, as much as I want to believe in the collapse of Minnesota, and it is coming, Minnesota will fully collapse and they'll be close to or just squeak in a playoff spot. But Minnesota, I think, just has a little too much. And with the development of Anthony Richardson coming out of the game, I just can't, in all faith, as good as Jonathan Taylor is, and he should have a pretty good game against Minnesota's defense, I can't give it to Indy. I just can't. It's not a good precedent when your quarterback is stepping up because I'm exhausted. I need to take a break. You're the starting quarterback. You should be out there. It's like how things have changed. If a player in Lombardi's day would have said, I need to take up for a break, he'd sit the rest of the game. You should probably sit the rest of the game. Let's be honest. It's just not a manly thing to do, but who am I to say that? But Indy loses, but it should be a relatively close game. 24-27. So Minnesota avoids a 3-game losing skid, but again, if Minneapolis loses, it wouldn't surprise me in the least. I don't know why I keep calling Minneapolis. I know it's just a city, but it's Minnesota. Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota should win. Next. Tampa Bay versus Kansas City. Kansas City with a win over Las Vegas to go to 8-0. Well, 7-0 because they already had their bye. And Tampa Bay with another loss to Atlanta. So their chances of winning the division are going down. Tampa Bay was still able to put up some points last week. Kate Otten has a good rapport with Baker. Rashad White and Bucky Irving is a really good 1-2 punch in the backfield. But their defense just isn't great, and they're giving up points left and right. They gave up a ton of points last week. Kirk Cousins had over 4 touchdowns. He looked fantastic. He didn't really do all that much in the second half, but again, just still was able to pick apart the Tampa Bay defense from top to bottom. Kansas City with the win again. Kareem Hunt looks great at running back. Xavier Worthy had a couple of good, nice plays last week as well. Travis Kelce finally showed up for the first time of the year on National Tight End Day. So I'm going to give Kansas City the win. I just haven't seen a team so far that looks like they're going to beat Kansas City. Kansas City is going to go to 8-0. Tampa Bay is going to continue to go down for their third straight loss. And that once promising season that we saw at the beginning of the year when Tampa Bay surprised everybody and looked really good. Yeah, without Mike Evans, without Chris Godwin, I just don't see any future for them this year. I'm sure they'll still give it a good fight. It'll still be a close game. 30-24. But in the end, Kansas City wins, and they win convincingly. They're just a better team than Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay just not the same team without their 2 top wide receivers. But let me know what you think down below. Let me know what your picks are for the week. And if my picks helped you win last week and do similar to what I did, you're welcome. Have a great day. As always, go back, go. And as always, God bless.